Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well. So 2024 is getting off to a good start now that the Bitcoin spot ETFs are here. This along with Defiance and the YieldMax ETFs, I think we should be in for a good year. Of course, there's going to be like some bumps in the road. So I think these could be useful for like kind of counterbalancing movements in either the spot Bitcoin spot ETFs or like the high yield ETFs. So there's some opportunities for diversification and even like outperformance. But there's quite a few Bitcoin spot ETFs are out there, and I thought it might be helpful to kind of show you kind of the differences and which ones might be right for you. So with the tear in my eye, this is the best day of my life, and I'll link like this Ric Flair promo because this is how I feel. There's so much good stuff in here. So this is just on day one. 'Cause I was keeping track of this like all day, and even just the volume is pretty impressive. So even though the kind of like the mid tier ones, they're they're on par with some of the Defiance and YieldMax ETFs, and I think this is where like the custodians will come in handy for the purposes of helping people decide whether a certain Bitcoin ETF is right for them. So thanks again to James Seifert. He's been very instrumental in helping people keep track of like all the Bitcoin spot ETFs and like the waivers and the fees and whatnot, and also like the custodian, which I think is a very underrated aspect of like the Bitcoin spot ETFs. So I guess if you don't have any Bitcoin exposure at all, now would probably be a good time to take advantage of some of the low fees while they last. And even after the waivers, I think they're still pretty good. Like some of these, like for example, like Bitwise, like 20 basis points. The ARK is like 21 basis points and so on and so forth. I guess like the only kind of bummy ones are like the hashtags and the grayscale, and I'll get to that in a second. So I guess you can't go wrong with any of these. Although I guess like maybe the Valkyrie one could maybe lower their fees a little bit, and same thing with Invesco and Wisdom Tree. But I guess it's still early. There's still room for people to shuffle fees around. Again, and this is like by the time you watch this, like the fees might already change as well. But I guess like the one thing that I want to keep in mind, like especially for myself, since I already have some pre-existing crypto positions, like this is very important for me to kind of like make a determination whether a certain ETF will fit in my portfolio. For example, like a lot of this is like has Coinbase as its custodian. So for me, most of the Coinbase ones are, they're not that interesting to me. The same thing with Gemini. I guess like it depends on which custodian you happen to use. Like if you really like Bitcoin, I think for most people they probably took it off the exchange anyway and put it, in a safer location, like a hardware wallet or even like a paper wallet. So and also there's another consideration, like if you're really into like the Bitcoin stuff, like there's the developer support, and I want to thank the BitMEX research, like their Twitter handle. And by the way, I'm linking like the stuff in the description below, so you can kind of like peruse this at your own time. So far, like if you're really into like the Bitcoin community, like the donations to the developers, I think will make a also be an important consideration for people. So Bitwise will be the leader currently, like they're donating 10% of profits to the developers, and then the next one will be the Van Eck, like 5% to the developers. And it's also interesting to note how like the kind of like the flows for like between like day one and day two. I could expect this trend to like continue because I think a lot of people will most likely, like if they already have like a grayscale, like the grayscale Bitcoin ETF, like they're probably gonna take money out, like we're saying now, and putting into some of the other cheaper funds. So I have a personal vendetta against grayscale, so keep that in mind. I don't like the current owner, like the digital currency group. They screwed over a lot of Gemini Earn and some other people that lent money to their Genesis Trading subsidiary. So that's why I'm not a fan of grayscale. But and also just in general, like they didn't even make a attempt to like lower their fees. I mean, I guess like the only good thing I can say about them is that they're filed for a covered call ETF, but even then, like I doubt that would be any better or less or cheaper. So this one is like the most expensive, and it's the easy pass for me, like for now. So I think I want to give BlackRock like some kudos because I think they've done like the best out of everyone so far in terms of like the transparency. I think this is kind of like a model that others should follow. So if you look at the website now, you can tell like how many Bitcoin they have. Now this screenshot was kind of on their like I guess like the for the first day on the second day where they reported like the holdings. So there's 227 Bitcoin. There's probably a lot more by the time you read this. But I just wanted to show you how easy it is to kind of look things up and kind of figure out like what their holdings are. This way you can kind of determine like the net asset value and then also the price to see if you're getting a good deal or not. Fidelity also has a pretty good disclosure as well. Although you have to kind of download either like a PDF file and it's the same thing. You can tell like how many they have and then you can kind of go backwards and figure out well, the net asset value and then also like they show you like the current shares outstanding. And then also ARKB is also pretty good. They also have like a PDF and CVS holdings. Although I would probably go with the CVS file and then download it and just kind of double check like if the numbers make sense. So basically what I did was I did a calculation by the market value and the number of Bitcoin that they have to make sure like the Bitcoin like the spot market value makes sense. So, at the time of this recording, like $46,000 is okay, that makes sense to me. And then there's also even more good news, like potentially since now that the Bitcoin spot ETFs, the next logical one would be the Ethereum ones. And I want to thank this person at Future for sharing like kind of like the status of the ETF so far. So it looks like maybe I guess like since BlackRock and Fidelity are kind of like the leaders right now. So I guess the final deadline, this might be like an indication of when we might be able to see like a Ethereum spot ETF as well. So that's something to keep an eye on. So since like I think most people, including myself, might have some stuff on either Coinbase and Gemini, it might not make sense to kind of concentrate into like the ones that are marked off as Coinbase. And there's only one Gemini supported custodian fund, so that's like the Van Eck one. So I guess like if you don't have it, then that might make sense for you. Now for myself, I would like FBTC. I'm already starting like building a position as sort of like the main like I guess like my main Bitcoin spot ETF holding. But I also like the BlackRock one, like the IBIT. I think this might be better for constructing option trades. And who knows, like I might be able to even share some of those with you in the future. And speaking of which, the CBOE they've also made filings with the SEC, so that might take a while in terms of like options trading. So I also linked a article in the description below. So I think in my humble opinion, just based on the volume alone, like FBTC and IBIT are kind of like the two leaders. So that's why I'm going with them. But of course, like you should make up your own mind. Like it depends on what you already have, and then I mean, I can't see can't go wrong. There's so many of them, and they're pretty cheap, and they're much better than like stuff like BITO or Maxi. They're so expensive. Like I'm just gonna wait, or even just like do cover calls myself on like some of these Bitcoin spot ETFs. So I expect like the weeklies and monthlies to be available. Maybe I guess maybe by the time you hear this, like they'll already have them out. Crossing my fingers, and maybe even in the future, they might make like zero DT lights, similar to GLD and SLV. So I want to say this, obviously none of this is financial or tax advice. Definitely in crypto, there's no refunds, so you guys got to be careful. You got to make, but I guess like no risk, no return. And I think for a lot of folks, like the brokerage accounts will be a lot more convenient for most people. I know for myself, I would prefer to for like the trading part of my portfolio, I would like these Bitcoin spot ETFs rather than like, taking it out of moving money back and forth between a hard wallet and an exchange and this and that. And then like, for example, Coinbase and Gemini, for most people in the US, they I think they have maybe like a futures like overseas, but I'm not even gonna bother with that stuff. I'd rather just trade like the Bitcoin spot ETF options. So I think for me personally, that like would be like pretty convenient, and I think that would probably be convenient for most people as well. So if you like this type of content, please consider giving this a like. I plan to do a lot more videos on like the Bitcoin spot ETFs and like trade construction and things like that. And if you can subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. So thank you for watching. I hope people make some good money this year, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.